Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind. Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello and welcome everyone. My guest speaker today is Jonathan Symmonds, who originally comes from Zimbabwe and currently living and working on a Netflix film on location in Mauritius, the Indian Ocean. Jono was at school in Zimbabwe with one of my daughters, and I'm very proud and honored to have him with me today on Awaken Your Mind Magic. And what an appropriate person to be interviewing, as he has the largest capacity of mind imagination and magic possible. Jono is widely recognized as the father of the dragons, having created his own dragon after completing work on the Game of Thrones. He has his very own VFX company and online academy by the name of Sophoria VFX. Further, he's been nominated 3 times for a VES award, completed his own TED Talk, and has taught over 3,000 students. He's been in this game for 20 plus years and really is quite incredible. And just wait until you hear this amazing man speak and tell us what he's accomplished in his life so far. Welcome, Jono. It's so good to have you here.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your show, actually. I've been looking forward to this we've been trying to get in touch for a couple of weeks now, and now it's officially happening. So I'm very, very excited and nervous at the same time, but such is the way.
Well, it works both ways, because I am so in awe of you and your capacity of what you have done in your, well, to me, very short and young life. So, knowing both your beloved mum and your aunt, I naturally have followed your progress and massive success with avid interest. Tell us your story, Jono. Tell us how you came to awaken your mind magic.
Okay, well, where do I begin? I suppose starting from the beginning is the important part. Growing up I was born in South Africa. And at 5 years old, I moved to Zimbabwe. And my mum, my biological mother, she passed away when I was just 5. She had a brain hemorrhage. And my aunt, so Jenny, it gets a little bit complicated, the whole story, but Jenny was my aunt, and she and Chris Donald, they adopted me and my sister, Melanie. And we grew up with them in an amazing place in Zimbabwe called the Vumba Mountains. And translating that means the Mountains of Mist. And it was an amazing experience. I couldn't have hoped for anything better than that, really. And in their family, they also had, there were 2 brothers. So my 2 brothers were Michael and Alan, and then my sister Karen. When I was 5 years old growing up, it was a hard adjustment, but luckily I was younger. It was more difficult for Melanie, my sister. She was older, so she knew what had happened, and I adjusted much easier to the new system than the new sort of family than she did. But growing up there, I managed to have this amazing upbringing, and after school, I went to boarding school there. I learned how to fold my bed sheets really, really nicely, and it was a really nice experience. It taught me so much. It taught me to respect elders and to always put someone else before you in a way where you look after each other, because you're at this boarding school and it's away from home for 3 or 4 months at a time, and you don't get to see your family. You learn to live with each other and to respect each other, and it's very, very character building. So after that, I went to England. So I went to meet my biological father now in England, and I had met him a few times in Zimbabwe. He had shown up randomly at the school and tried to give me gifts and things like that. But and that was very, very confusing as well for us kids. And asking questions about it was very swept under the carpet a little bit. So I went to the UK in 2002 after the farm invasions in Zimbabwe. My mum said, get on the plane and try and get out of Zimbabwe as fast as possible, So it was a difficult time for everybody. But I had just finished school, so the timing was perfect, really. And then I went there, and I said I was very good at drawing. So my mum, Jenny, she, as you know, she was very artistic and she loved flowers and things. And I spent a lot of time with her drawing and coming up with creative ideas for things. So I started drawing at a young age. And when I went over to the UK, I realized that I wanted to do more with the drawings, but I just didn't like that the drawings were just drawings. They didn't move. They didn't tell a story. They're just static things. So I said, how can I make them different? How can I use the skill and make me a career out of it somehow? So animation was an option. And then I studied at university in Hertfordshire. I put myself through university doing 2 or 3 different jobs at the time. And if you've listened to my TED talk, I used to, one of the jobs I did was having to sell makeup to women on the street. And being a Zimbabwean and not knowing anything about this sort of stuff, I had to stop, beautiful women or women on the street in general and say, listen, I think you need some makeup on your face. and try and sell that. But I was going to do everything. I was going to do everything that I could to get through university and make something of my career. And then I graduated from there, and I was offered a job at a fantastic company called Framestore. Very, very, very big, one of the biggest companies in the world in terms of film production. And I started there as a runner. So I started making tea and coffee for everybody. And, I knew all the ins and outs of who was, talking about nasty about one person or another. And I knew all the dark secrets of the company and all the good things of the company too. And I managed to get a job on Primeval, with my animation supervisor, Mark Brooking. And he saw talent in me, and he said, I would like you to join our animation department. And I had to teach myself a different type of software before I could begin. And on the first day, I remember on the first day, he said, basically, if you had started to animate straight away without doing any research, I probably wouldn't have kept you on, So obviously made an impression right in the beginning. And I think that was something my mom ingrained into me in Zimbabwe and the boarding school. At the time, it makes you respect each other, and you learn to take everyone's opinion and take it with a pinch of salt. I think if anyone's critical of your work or whatever you do, whatever your choices that you decide to do in your life, whatever your career is, if you take it personally, then you won't be successful at that. But if you take it with a pinch of salt and learn from their experience, especially older people, They have so many more stories to tell than we do. And then you can adjust yourself. And that's what I did. And I became very, very successful. I learned everything really quickly. I moved up through the films, Nutcracker, Avatar, Harry Potter. And then, I just, after a while, it was, after Avatar was a fantastic film to work on. James Cameron, he's an inspiration to many people, but he has his own way of doing things, and it took all the creativity out of what I was trying to do. So animation, you try to be creative. It's like being a sculptor and having someone hold your hand for you and sculpt it at the same time. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't take it. But at the time, I didn't realize how successful Avatar would have become. So I went over to Norway to Mel, to my sister. She lived there now. And I was there. And then Avatar got released. And, boom, my whole career just exploded. And the Norwegian press found out that I was living in Norway, in Oslo. And I had a couple of interviews, and then I got asked to work in a company in Oslo as well, a visual effects company. And I was suddenly a lead animator on a film, a Troll Hunter movie, which is a very legendary fable, if you want to call it that, in Norway. So it was so important to be true to the history and the stories that those kids got told. So I had to study all of this, and it was a big step. But that was my big turning point, the Avatar, that I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. That was actually my spark to ignite the next part of my career. And then becoming a lead, I started to look after a team. So I had my own animation department, and that's when I started to learn so much about responsibility. Like if you're animating in a group of animators, let's take it out of animation. Let's put it into a sculpture or building a car. If everyone knows what the end of the car will look like, then the car will be made and it will look exactly like that. But if you say, hey guys, let's all build a car, and everyone has their own input, the car ends up looking very, very strange. So with animation, it's the same. You say, okay, here's your character. I want to animate this dinosaur, but he has to be intelligent. So all the animators have to now adjust their thinking and animate the creature that they're working with in an intelligent manner. So that's what I was supervising, the behavior of these characters. And then after Troll Hunter and Knetten, I worked on another movie called Knetten, and I was doing lip syncing. So it's matching the mouth shapes to the words. But of course the film's in Norwegian, so I didn't know what they were saying most of the time. And, so I was watching the guy next to me going, say this word in Norwegian, and he'd say it, and I'd be watching his mouth, and then I'd learn, and all the time bettering my skills and learning and becoming better at what I was doing. And then after that, I decided, so I lived in Norway for about 2-3 years. And after Kristen Animation Studios, I left and I went back to London. And then after a while, I got a contract in Italy. And I went over there and I did this commercial. It was just a commercial. I was only supposed to be there for a couple of weeks. And I ended up staying for 8 years. Because I ended I ended up falling in love with an beautiful Italian girl there, and we stayed and we worked in this little company. And there was a guy who was our boss, and he couldn't speak any English at the time. His name was Rami Tessé, and Rami actually is now my business partner. So he's the co-founder of Sophoria. And Sophoria, the word Sophoria, is named after his 2 daughters, Sophia and Gloria. So we talk every single day, all day. We chat and we're getting up. We've set up the company in Mauritius. So that was a big thing. And then, of course, during all of these times, when I was in Italy, I was there for 8 years, and I was called to work on Game of Thrones in Frankfurt in Germany, which was just over the road, really. You could drive there from our house to Frankfurt in 13 hours. So a flight was only 1.5 hours. So I would go backwards and forwards, and I was called in to replace the lead animator that was there at the time. And that contract was 5. So it ended up being 5 years of work with the dragons and developing their behavior as they grew up. So when I came to Game of Thrones, Drogon and the other dragons, they were teenagers, So they were very, very quick and very, oh, this is very exciting. How am I going to do this? And I was trying to watch behavior and trying to understand like how long it would take for them to turn their head, or how long will it take a blink of a teenager. Teenagers, their eyes are really open and everything. And then as they get older, they become much more wiser and much more restrained. And actually, to make them intelligent, you restrict the movements of the facial performance. So if you make them too lively on the face, then it gives away a lot, But we couldn't make them human in any way, so they couldn't have a human connection in some way. So that's what I was responsible for at the time. And then after that, I was called to do my TED Talk. So the TED guys phoned me here in Mauritius. They phoned me and they said, "Can you come do a TED Talk and tell your story?" And at first I said, "No, I can't do this. I cannot bring myself to tell the story to the world." And it was so personal to me growing up, and during, of course, what I haven't mentioned in this section is all the loss, the family loss of what I went through during my career. So they wanted me to tell my story about losing my mum and my brother and my sister and my first mum, and being adopted and coming from Zimbabwe to become the Game of Thrones successful animator. And I couldn't tell this story. I said, "No, I can't do this." And I wrote, I think it was 23 different versions of the talk. And each one, I even got people to help me, but it was their words and it wasn't my own words. So after the third call, I said, "Okay, look, I'll come over and do this talk." And I was terrified, but the success of doing the talk has created a new person inside of me. It's made me put everything back into a nutshell, and realizing that I have so much to give and so much to teach still, and so much to learn as well about myself, about life in general, and being here on the island, isolated all by myself, and setting up my own business and academy to teach students of Africa and the world. It's made me use all that responsibility and respect that I learned back at school, and make that and give that back to people, which I think the generations that are growing up now, we grew up with writing letters to each other and spraying them with perfumes so that you could smell each other. And, on Valentine's Day, you'd wait for your card or whatever it was. But now everything's digital. Kids are born into a digital world with internet. They don't know a world where there isn't internet. And so I guess to sum it all up, that was my big career, and it's been a big eye opener for me to take the risk, I think, of going through my career of 20 years and learning everything I've learned, and then saying I can do this on my own. And then suddenly COVID-19 hits, and you're sitting in a situation where you're just starting your business, and it's in the film industry, where the film industry is actually not very productive. Nobody's making these big films anymore. So there's less and less work. So you're thinking, what can we do? And just learning to adapt, and talking to Chris all the time. He's up and at 73, 74 years old, he's up and left and gone to Hawaii, and he's like living the dream. And it's great.
Jono, thank you so much for sharing this. And what I am going to do, and if it is painful for you, please just let me know. And I won't I won't continue to question you about these things. In Awaken Your Mind Magic, part of it is the awakening from pain, where you learn so much through that. And I see that in your wonderful dragons and your incredible animation in Avatar, Nanny McPhee, all these different incredible movies that you have been part and parcel of the creation of all of these wonderful, fantastical things everywhere. That is part of your growing up and that wonderful love from both your mothers, your adoptive mother and your biological mother, and also living and growing up in the Vumba, which, listeners, if you knew what the Vumba's like, it is so magical. Early morning growing up as a kid, I recall the bird song, the mist in these mountains, the tropical greenery everywhere, and the creatures and the crawly things and the creeping things. So I understand, Jono, exactly where all this magic started to seep into that wonderful soul of yours. And you are a generous, gentle soul and extremely shy. However, your dragons aren't. And the things that you create can be fierce. Talk to me about your favorite dragon.
Definitely Drogon. Drogon was my favorite. And as you say, basically growing up in the Vumba Mountains, you get that exposure to all these creepy crawlies and things. And I've got video footage of playing with chongololos, you know? I don't know if anyone out there knows what a chongololo. It's like a giant millipede, big black thing. And I used to play with them and pull them apart and eat them. And oh my God.
You.
But I used to be obsessed with the insects, and I used to love watching them move but mostly tell where they were going. Why were they going that way? What's their story? Why are the ants going in this direction? Why is there a moth on my window? And why is the spider here? Why is that snake there? And I would tell myself these stories really, really young. And I think that when I knew I was going to do animation, I always knew I would do creature animation and not cartoon, Pixar, happy, animation. So Drogon was my favorite character because I could take all of that knowledge and that experience of working with insects and creatures and telling my stories through my animated characters, that Drogon was the character that I could escape into the most. During Game of Thrones season 8, my sister Karen, she called me and she said, hey, I'm not feeling fantastic and what. And I was saying, that, she should work out a bit more. She was a gym instructor, and she had, amongst other things. But I was making fun of her and saying, you need to work out more and this kind of stuff. And then she called and she said, listen, I have leukemia. And we were like, I didn't know what leukemia was. So I started studying it and I started freaking out because it's cancer in the blood. It's not like you can just cut it out of your body, And 18 days later, she died in South Africa. And I couldn't understand like how this is possible. I'd lost Jenny as well in a car accident in 2004. And then my brother Alan, he drowned in Mozambique while spearfishing in 2005. And it was like, I just couldn't understand how this is possible. How can you continue to remain positive and to become who you are and to hold your stature and to lead a team of animators and to remain powerful and confident and to animate this super, super important character on his last episode? How could I continue this? So I escaped into the dragon. So I really just literally detached all my social connection with everyone around me, and I'd work. I'd go home, I'd teach my students, I'd come to the office. I wouldn't really socialize much, and I'd just animate inside the dragon, and I'd be inside of him. And it helped so much because he, you know, I could become him in a way, and I could escape into, you know, it's simple things. It's hard to explain it. So I suppose, you know, when you're animating a performance of something or a personality of a character, you have to become that personality. So when you're seeing Pixar animators animation on TV, you're seeing the actual animator becoming that character. And same with creatures, but creatures are a little bit different because there isn't a human connection to them. You can't make a lizard a human. The moment it does, you detach yourself from believing that it's realistic. So that was the tricky part. But I suppose, you know, going through, you know, the funeral, coming back from the funeral, and escaping into the dragon was a gift for me. I was so fortunate to be in that position that I could do that, you know. And I don't know what would have happened if I wasn't a successful animator at that time. I don't know what would have happened. And also at the same time, you know, my girlfriend in Italy, she, you know, a couple of weeks after Karen passed away, she said, I'm leaving you, you know, I can't do this anymore. So I had everything crumbling around me, but it was important to focus on the priorities at the time, step by step, moment by moment, and just believe in yourself enough that time will heal you, and that it will be okay in the end. And I'd been through it before with Alan and with Jenny and some of my friends that have passed away as well. So I was used to it by now, but this one was really quick, and it was terrible timing. And then, you know, the TED Talk was a big reason why I wanted to tell the story, because I think that everyone goes through traumatic times. Look, I mean, I'm not going to, you know, be here and say, oh, I've had a terrible life. I haven't. I've had an amazing life. I've had an amazing, amazing career. And I'm fortunate to be where I am in this position, in this lovely villa that I'm in Mauritius. And because there's people that have had worse situations than me. There's people that don't have arms or legs or families. And I can't sit there and say, oh, I've had a tough life. But what I can do is I can give back by saying that it's not the end. You know, you can focus on what it is that you need to do for every moment. Distract yourself as much as you can, and then let the chips fall where they may, and learn from everything. Learn from every time that you get upset, or that you get happy, or you laugh or joke about something. And then when you get home, and you get home at night and you're by yourself, you have to go through and compartmentalize everything in your mind, and then deal with it on your own. And you have to deal with it. You can't just push it away, because it comes back at you.
Did you find when you wrote those various scripts for your TED Talk that writing was a healing process for you, Jono?
Absolutely. Yeah. I wrote so many different versions of it too. And I had my fantastic student. He was my student in Germany, and I hired him to become an animator on Game of Thrones. He's a South African kid as well. And now he's actually helping me, so I'm helping him. He's fixing my new dragon at the moment. So he's in Canada. He's fantastic. But he sat with me, and he went through because he knows my whole life backwards. So he was going through and breaking it all down and trying to put it on paper, everything. And as great as it was, the words weren't mine. As I say, my sister helped me as well. They weren't my words. And writing down, eventually I wrote everything in about 3 or 4 hours. In one go, I just closed myself in a room, and I said, this is the moment. I've got to do this. The world's going to hear my story. I need to tell it in a way that it's not super sad, but it's inspiring. And because of the people that have had worse times than me. I don't want to be I don't want it to be a speech about like, oh, boo-hoo. I want it to be inspiring. So that was the target, was to be an inspirational talk and at the same time blend it with reality. So mix in reality with what has happened, like with how to move on from a traumatic experience. It might not be a death. It could be something else. And I wanted to put all of those into the same package and then give that back to somebody. So, and even after the TED Talk, I was approached, I had a whole queue of people outside and they were just saying, listen, you've changed the way I think about things. I lost my dad the other day, but just watching you has made me realize that, it's possible to just to hold the memory close and then move on, because that's all you're left with. You're left with the memories and you're left with the feeling of that person around you, but you can't make it better. You can't grow from that. So keeping that memory close to you and then moving forward. That's what everyone was saying. Thank you for your talk and thank you for telling your story. And writing it was full of tears. It was crazy. But
I watched your TED Talk. And in fact, I've watched it numerous times. And I would think mainly because I knew your family and I knew you as a little boy running around Jenny's cottage.
Little Tara.
Actually, you were pretty good. You used to also want to help serve tables and things like that. It was cute. Yeah. But now you're a big, handsome man, of course. But that TED Talk really made me cry. It made me cry for a lot of things that I've experienced personally as well. Being in Zimbabwe, we all experienced farm invasions, which the world doesn't really understand unless they've been there, where people's homes were taken, their cattle were hamstrung, people were murdered, their staff were murdered, our friends were, and we went through what was called the Rhodesian War, kind of at the same time as Vietnam. We understand those sadnesses, and then, of course, the way you presented that TED Talk was so brave. And yes, I felt extremely maternal. I just wanted to give you a big hug. What I love about you is your creativity and your passion for the life you breathe into whatever you create, because it is so realistic. Talk to me more about some of your other films that you've actually worked on and the creatures and the personalities of them that you've created. Because obviously Game of Thrones is just like mind-blowing. And those dragons are just precious. And of course the actors as well. They're just incredible. However, what's behind scenes is people like you. Because without you, there would have been no Game of Thrones or no Avatar or anything. Talk to me about those wonderful, wonderful lives that you've created.
Okay, well, as I always mention as well, it's I want to first of all be humble and say that not all the animation that I've worked on was myself. Of course, there were other animators around that worked on the dragons in different scenes. I didn't do all of the scenes. On Avatar, I worked with the mechanical robots, so we couldn't really put a character into those creatures.
They were great.
They were great. I was so amazed that I had the opportunity to work on it. It was actually good timing. I worked on Where the Wild Things Are. That's where I was able to use a bit of experience in getting into the personality. I loved the story. I remember the story as a kid, and then there I am working on the film. I couldn't quite believe it. And then sitting next to me is Spike Jonze, the director of Where the Wild Things Are, and he's plucking his guitar in my face, and it's like, it was just such a wild experience working with that. But being able to put myself into the characters that I worked with, of course, you have a brief. So when you're working on a film, let's say Where the Wild Things Are, you'll be given a brief. Say Carol, the main character, is very, he's very cross and very aggressive and very, and the other ones are all laughy and happy and, life is great. And they're all the personalities of the young boy. So, that's the mindset that you have to get into. But what's really strange is to switch from one character to another character. So say you have two characters in the scene. Carol's really angry, and then the other characters are happy or sad or laughing or joking. So animating and switching behaviors whilst you're working, that's something else entirely. That's an amazing skill to have and to learn. And I observe everything around me, everything I can see, especially human behavior, people. I love to watch how they react to each other. A snide comment, or especially at a dinner table when it's, people have just met each other and they like to introduce, watching the body language and understanding that I could tell a story of what's happening on the table without any words. I could tell the story and it would probably be quite similar to what's happening. But that's what I do. So it depends on if it was the pigs on Nanny McPhee or the Nutcracker. He was really wild and crazy. So we'd actually film ourselves. Yeah, we'd film ourselves like, and doing all this stuff, have these floppy arms, and then we'd use that as reference. So you'd film yourself and then you'd act that, you'd get into character and you'd film yourself and you go, and then you'd use that as reference. And we had all the actors as well. They videoed them because they were just voiceovers. So they videoed the actors, and then Spike as well. He did his own impersonation of what that word would mean at that time. So we had a lot of give, and I learned a lot from that. Now what's fantastic is that I have my own business, right? And I have my own dragon. And I built this dragon because of Karen, because of the loss of her and the fact that I got so connected to Drogon. And then suddenly they're like, okay, that's a wrap. And that's the last time I could touch Drogon. That's the last time I would ever see him again. And that was hectic for me. Just suddenly closing shop, going back to my hotel room and thinking I'm never going to be able to escape again. So I had to really focus on that moment and then go back to my empty house, clean out all my stuff, give everything away and leave Italy. And I didn't know where I was going to go. I had nowhere to go. So it was a big step. And then, but my dragon now, Atourian, I've called him Atourian. So Chris, my dad, Chris, and I were in the jacuzzi in Cape Town, and we were drinking wine and talking about a name. Let's come up with a name. And my dad's like, Jono, I want a tattoo of the dragon on my shoulder. And he said, why don't you call it Atourian? Because you're a tourist. And I thought that was a great name. So now that I have my own dragon, I've created my own character for him. I've made him my own way, and I can escape to him any single time I want to. If times are hard or if I'm going through a rough patch, I just get on my computer and I animate something. And I don't know what I'm going to animate. I just know that together I'll create something that I can escape with. And normally it's quite nice to watch. So,
tell me a little bit more about Atourian's character. Speak to me about it. Let the listeners hear. Be Atourian.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. So he's a little bit childish in a way, and he's inquisitive. Let's put it that way. He wants to learn everything. He wants to explore, and that is something that I was restricted from a lot on Game of Thrones. I wanted him to do things. Some shots that I was working on the show, I would do 4 or 5 different versions, and because also the producers of the show, they were like, hey, Drogon comes and lands over here. And I'm like, okay. So I'd animate this awesome animation and he'd land, and then they'd be like, he's overacting. And so I'd be like, oh God. So now I'd start again, do something else. So with my dragon, I can do whatever I want, and I don't have any restrictions from him. So he's naughty. He's very inquisitive, as I say, but he's dominant. He has this power around him. He just has to walk, and you're in awe of him. He's not small. He's massive, 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 and he's commercially available. So I've already done a project with him in Atlanta, and for Ron Clark. Ron Clark he's an amazing teacher in Atlanta, and he has a school that is designed around dragons. They have staircases made out of dragon bones. And he approached me on Instagram and said, Jono, I love your dragon and I love your animation. Would you mind doing a project for us? And that was our big break. And we hadn't even finished building the dragon. So we were quickly, we've got to do this. And he wanted the personality of what the animation that he wanted. When he saw my dragon, he said, I wanted to do this. And that's exactly how I designed him. I designed him so that I wanted him to be inquisitive and dominant and things. So he lands on there's this dome in Atlanta's school, the Ron Clark Academy, it's about to go live. It's a 45-meter nanolumens screen, and it's a portal into the sky. But there's dragons flying around, and all these different dragons, and the one dragon lands on the roof, and he looks down and he's looking at all the students and being inquisitive and checking everything out. And then he comes up and he breathes fire, and then he flies off. So that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted him to be inquisitive, but just be careful. I can take you out at any moment that I choose to. So it was such a pleasure to work on that show and once on that project. And once it's a permanent installation, it's going to be inside the Atlanta school and the academy. So I'm super excited to see that. And that's it, I suppose.
So tell the listeners, what color is your dragon?
He's brown at the moment. He's just a normal browny black dragon. He's not very entertaining. I didn't want him to be brightly colored. I didn't want him to be cartoony in any way. If I made him yellow or if I made him pink or blue, I think immediately I would lose the connection with him. I want him to be like an elephant or a rhinoceros. I want him to be like a buffalo. I want him to be something that I grew up with, and I never saw a blue buffalo or a green elephant. So, yeah.
No, neither did I. Some people that we grew up with saw a lot of pink ones, though. A lot of pink elephants in Africa. A lot of people who've had a little bit too much to drink on New Year's Day wonder about the pink elephants. What color are dragons' eyes?
Oh, that's a good question. I suppose they go from a black to an orange to a bright yellow in the center of the eye. And when he is super angry or at nighttime, they can glow. But this is just, it's conceptualized. It's not, dragons didn't exist in the real world. So it's just a myth. I know.
I think they did.
I think I don't know. But because he is mythical, it's great because I don't have any rules. I don't have any restrictions of what he can do. I can put him on top of a mountain and his feet can be the size of the mountain. There's no restrictions about how big he could be. Like if I was to make, this is my elephant, it's like, okay, well, that's an elephant and that's as big as it can get. So that's what's nice about having a character or a creature that I can bend the rules with. I can escape with him and do anything, and it's really, really nice.
Are you going to give him a wife?
No.
Why?
Because they're apparently they were male and female. So.
So they were hermaphrodites.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's very clever. Oh, like amoebas.
Yeah. So I think
how clever of them, or hyenas, they can change sex too. I could just see that now, Jono. You could create sort of like this hyena thing as well. This amazing creature thing
Yeah.
that goes with a dragon.
Yeah. You could.
Just thinking about it. Now, this is what I love about people from Africa. Children from Africa. Doesn't matter which color or creed you are, but they have these imaginations. They can go out into the bush and they can climb trees and they can make a game of sticks. It doesn't matter what it is, but they can create. And that's because they have these wide open spaces, these amazing chungololos that you were talking about. Yep, chungololos, everybody. You better look those up because Jono's told you about them now. This is the first on Awaken Your Mind Magic. Tell me about how you would have spoken to yourself as the adult, the incredibly gifted and successful adult you are now. What advice would you give to yourself as that artistic, creative child setting out in life?
Wow. That's a good question. I think that I suppose my mum always used to say, always stay positive in any situation that you're in. If you find yourself in a dark place one day or something, you have a choice. This is something that is very personal to me as well. I don't like mosquitoes, but I'm not going to kill it just because of killing it if it's wanting to go outside. If there's a fly in my soup, I'll rather scoop it out and throw it out the window than scoop it out and throw it in the dustbin and squash it. There's people that will see a spider and hit it with a newspaper. And it's a bit like Men in Black. I can't handle this. I can't make that choice. I can't be that person to choose to take life from something because life is so important. It's so valuable. And we don't have a right. We're here. We're visiting this earth. We only have 60, 70 years on average to be here. So if I could go back, I would say, never say no to an opportunity if someone offers it to you. If someone says, would you like to do this? Never ever say no. If it's going scuba diving, if it's going for a walk, if it's going to do anything, if it's learning to drive or whatever it is, never ever say no to something and learn from it, because learning is the most valuable thing we can do as humans. We can learn from our mistakes. We can adjust our behaviors. We can choose who we want to be around. And I remember when I was a kid, my pencil case at boarding school, I opened it up and I wrote a quote inside of it. And it said, surround yourselves only with the best, because the better they are, the better you will become. And I used to look at that every single day. So I'd have that open and I'd read that every single day of my life for 15 years. So that was imprinted in my mind. And then, you're going to go through life, Jono, as a young adult, you're going to go through life and you're going to be influenced by people that will try and attach themselves to you or be negative around you or whatever it is. Offer them support, but don't let them bring you down. And that is something even to this day that I still speak to about, which is so important. Some people say to me, how do you remain so calm? How do you remain so organized in your approach to life as in general? And what I do is I put everything in. I remember on the farm in the Vumba Mountains, we had our stables in the farm. Mm-hmm. And inside stables are horses or whatever, in the stables. As a Zimbabwean farmer or anyone who's seen a stable, they will understand where horses go. And inside, so I have in my mind this long corridor of stables, and inside each stable room is a problem. It's a situation or something I need to do. And I have them numbered. So they're all numbered and they have priorities. And some of them have more problems that are attached to other ones that are linked to different stables, just in case there is if I fix this, it's going to have an effect on that in stable number 3 or 4. And I know it's quite hard to conceptually visualize this, but it's just compartmentalizing what I do now. And if I could go back and say to myself younger, I'd say learn everything, learn from your mistakes, and put your mistakes into boxes. So I would say learn from them and never ever lose an opportunity to make yourself better. Learn from everything someone gives you, advice, or, you know, if someone gives you a nice, kind comment, be kind back to them. Don't squash a spider just because it's there. That's not, you don't have any right to do this as humans. We don't have this right. We don't have a right to go and shoot an elephant that's standing on its own in Zimbabwe. We don't have that right. We shouldn't. And yet this still happens, and there's still people like this. And that's what I would tell a generation that's growing up behind me, is to respect everything that you've been given in life, and learn from all your mistakes.
That's very good advice. What is, I don't usually ask my special guests this, but listening to you, are you a Buddhist? What is your belief? Because that is so Zen.
I actually don't. I grew up in a Catholic school, Peter House. I was head chorister of the school, but for 18 years we had to sit and pray, and I just don't believe in God at all. I absolutely do not. I also, with Jenny was very, very religious as well, but she was more spiritual than religious.
Yeah.
She believed in magic, and she believed in fairies and in the forests, and she used to press those flowers, and she'd make
I remember.
Book, and you'd open them, and each page told a story of what she was thinking. And looking back after she passed away and seeing all these books and these stories, I believed so much in spirituality. I don't worship anything in any way. I just know that during my time that I'm here, I'm going to make sure that I leave a legacy rather than a footprint. I leave a bit of advice rather than a dictatorship, and that's something that I want to give back. That's why I teach, and I love to teach. And my target market for teaching is actually African students, people that are in the third world. Why? Because they don't have daddy's bank account, or they haven't been given that privilege of a first world life. So their stories and their ambitions are much like mine. So I love to be able, when the academy opens, to have those students that want to learn so much, because then I can easily teach them my stuff.
I love that. Talk to me about your academy.
Okay, so during COVID, we decided, as the film industry started to take a bit of a hit, we decided that it would be a good time to start our academy. We'd always been thinking about it for a while, and I love teaching. I absolutely love it. I love seeing the success story of someone, and knowing that I gave them that opportunity, or I gave them an initial sort of, bit of advice, and they learn from that, and then they go on to be successful, and then they in turn will tell their stories. So actually, one of my students, I'm trying so desperately to get him to be an instructor, because I instructed him, but he is now at a stage where he has the ability to instruct back, and his story would also be fantastic. So I suppose that's my thing.
So with your academy, do they have to travel to Mauritius, or do you do this all online?
No, so in the beginning, the academy will be online. We have been doing a lot of interviews from instructors from all over the world. We actually did an interview with an instructor that worked on Tarzan, the original Tarzan, as a 2D animator. So my academy isn't going to be focused just on animation. It's going to be everything. It's going to be learning how to operate a camera, how to write a script, how to do budgeting for films. It's going to be everything that is giving a key or a platform for everyone to learn where they can go to tell their story. If they want to tell a story being a scriptwriter and they're not an animator, then that's a platform that they can do it. There's so many untold stories in Africa that the world turns a blind eye to, you know? And these stories need to be told. They have to be. I won't let them not be told. And I'm going to make a place where people can come in and there's a community and they can all learn how to tell that story through software or through education from some people in the industry that are very, very talented, and give them a standing platform to tell those stories. So the Academy is going to be online first, and then we will build a local film school here in Mauritius. But at the moment, we need to get that the finances together to build a local school. And I want to do it in that way rather than local school and then online, because I will spend more time on the local school and neglect the online. I'm only one person. So.
Well, if you ever need a teacher or an instructor, I'm coming. I love Mauritius.
Yes.
How did you end up in Mauritius?
So remember, I was asked to do the TED Talk, and it was in Mauritius, the talk itself. So when I came over here, I met Andreas Habermeyer. He is the big film producer on the island. He did Serenity, and now he's a really good friend of mine. I pop over there and have a glass of whiskey every now and then, and we chat about things. So he welcomed me and he said, "Look, Jono, we don't have a visual effects company on the island. I'm here. I've got this big studio, and would you consider opening a branch of your company here?" And being from Zimbabwe, being from Africa, it is part of Africa itself, Mauritius. Yeah. For those that don't know. And then I drove around the island while I was doing my TED Talk, walked around. Sure, you're surrounded by water, which makes you feel very isolated. And it's small. You can get around the island in about 2-3 hours, the whole way around. So it's pretty small. Yeah. So I knew that there wasn't an industry to be made here, but there is a potential for me to grow myself here in a place that hasn't been, colonized by visual effects companies. So I decided that this is the place. Of course, there's a lower tax rate here, so it's a bit of a tax haven for me. Whereas Italy, we were getting over 60% tax from the government, and here it's
wow.
And here it's between 3 and 15%. And there's a film rebate scheme here. So you can, if you put in money for a film, to produce a film for 10 million, the government gives you up to 40% back. So you end up spending so much less. Yeah. And it's just getting started. And I think now that actually the Academy is going to be teamed up with Identical Pictures, with Andreas Habermeyer's company. So they're going to do the film parts of it. So they're going to have a film area and have courses on that, local school and online courses. And then ours will be the VFX part in the middle. And that's how the film production works. So together we're going to build this massive academy. So eventually people will be able to come over here and learn in the classrooms and physically be there. And we will have master classes where we will invite famous, lecturers and teachers from all over the world to come, directors, and come over and do a 1 hour, 2 hour class on how to be a great director, just like masterclass.com. And same thing, but in the physical form.
Tell me about some of the well-known actors and people like that you've encountered in your time doing these incredible animations.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I don't know how to explain that one, but I suppose it's weird because I've been talking to a couple of friends now, and I've said, look, I'm working on this Netflix project, and of course I can't mention the name right now of it.
No.
To people, but they're like, oh my God, you're working with this actress and this actor, and I don't see that. I just see that my job that I need to do, and then suddenly, like last night, I actually started to research about the actor and the actress and see what they've done in the past, and and they did films that when I was a kid, I was obsessed over, but I didn't recognize them. I didn't even know about what they were. I'm standing in front of them and talking to them, but because I'm supervising some of the visual effects on the set. And they're like, oh my God. And I just don't see it. I don't know why. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's some strange Zimbabwean thing. But when I was at
it is.
When I was at the Vez Awards, when I was in LA, when I went to LA to do the Vez Awards for the second or third time, I saw, Ridley Scott, and he directed Gladiator, and I was just, and he was standing right next to me at the bar, and I'm like, oh my God, Ridley, you're amazing. And he's like, no, your dragons are amazing. And then meeting all these other actors, and you walk the red carpet yourself. So you think to yourself, well, when you first see them and you talk to them, they're just normal people, just like you, they also go to sleep and get up and go to the toilet, and, they laugh and joke, and they have their own problems too. So it's important to just sort of, not be in awe of everybody, but,
It's interesting you say it's a Zimbabwean thing, because a lot of people have said to me, but how do you know that person? And I say, well, I met him or her in such and such a place and kept comms with them. But how did you? Well, because they're just another person. And it is a Zimbabwean thing, because we've been very privileged in the old days when they used to call Zimbabwe la petite perle de l'Afrique, the little pearl of, or the little Switzerland of Africa, or the rest like that in the days of yore. We had many incredible personalities from all over the world purchasing property and wanting to live there because it was the African dream. So yeah, I think it is a bit of a Zimbabwean thing. You're extremely humble, and I appreciate that so much about you, Jono. When you spoke to me about being in Mauritius and doing the Netflix and everything, the first thing that sort of dawned on me was, well, like light bulb, oh, it must be something to do with Jurassic Park. So maybe your dragons have got your dragon. I'm thinking of the other ones that I can just see you creating. They've got a good home there with you. Tell me how, and the listeners, how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So our website is www.sophoria.com. It's Soph with a hyphen in between Soph and Horia. So Sophoria was taken, and we're trying to get that name, but it's impossible at the moment. So either there or on my website, my personal website, jonathansymmonds.com. You can contact me there, or on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. There's a Jonathan Symmonds public page there as well. And I'm open to anyone contacting and chatting, and I love to hear stories of people. And I actually, just recently, there was a young kid on the island who wants to be an animator, but there aren't any animation services on the island. So, and she's so talented. So I'm beating my head going, oh, we need to get this thing up and running, because there's already people aspired to do it. And she contacted me through my website and said, can I have a coffee with you? And I responded through the site and said, of course, and we went and chatted, and now she's going to go off to Canada, because there isn't a place to teach at the moment here, to learn for her at the moment. So she's going to go to Canada and study there. But then she'll come back and work for my business, hopefully. one day.
Of course she will. I would think that anybody would want to have the prestige of saying, I work with or for, or I did work for Jonathan Symmonds. I mean, even I like showing off that I know Jonathan Symmonds. Oh. He went to Peterhouse with my daughter, Kerry. So there you go. And we talk about the sort of Catholic thing and the praying and everything else. But you kids were all damn naughty, I know, as a parent.
We were so naughty. Well, you're stuck in a fenced boarding school for 3 months. You're going to end up going, oh God, let's go and take the tires off that car and move it over there or something.
Let's bunk out to Arkies or anything else like that. Yeah. I know. I picked a few of you kids up off the road on your way back from Harare. Harare, by the way, everybody, is the capital of Zimbabwe. And these kids used to get out from school. I don't know how they managed to do it. They'd say, oh, so-and-so's parents going to take me. And then they'd all go and party all weekend. These posh private school kids.
I remember.
I remember.
Yeah.
You go.
I remember at Rezawi, actually, when I was really young, because at Rezawi, I was dropped off there at 7 years old. And 7 years old, and you're like, oh my God. And then everyone's gone. You don't have your family and everything. So I ran away from Rezawi school. And
dear.
I was halfway down the road. I was tiny. And I was walking down this road going, with my little suitcase and going, I'm going to run away. And, you know, and then, my best friend's mum comes driving down the road, Lee Mackey, and she grabs me by the ear. She pulls me back and takes me to the headmaster and says, and even now when I meet her in the UK, you know, she's so amazing, such an amazing woman. When I meet her now, she's like, if you misbehave, I'll grab you by your ear. You remember this, you know? So we were naughty at those schools, but it was an amazing, amazing school, Peterhouse.
It was a great life. And I think your dragon is naughty like you were growing up, this playful, naughty little thing. And then every now and then, don't mess with me. I'm not going to put up with that, because that's a Zimbabwean thing as well. We taught our kids to be strong, tough, honest, and polite. And that's what you are. You're like your dragons.
Thank you.
You are the father of the dragons. Jono, thank you so much for being with me here today on Awaken Your Mind Magic. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and I love you lots. You're an amazing person and a fabulous, fabulous spirit. So thank you so much, Jono.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast, and honored, actually. I know that your success is due to your personality as well. So I'm happy to be on your podcast, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jono. Maybe one day you will make a dragon called Susan Kathleen.
Sure. A pink one. or yellow one, or green one.
No, I want to be a grey one like an elephant. I want to be real. Anyway, on that note, everyone, thank you, Jono. It's been great having you here. Bye now. That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me. Silver on the outside. On the inside, silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Tune in next week, where I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.